here with my friend Justin McCord. Justin, you just arrived in Las Vegas. Tell us what you're doing there.
I did, and Tim, I told you, I texted you and said, hey, like I'm not even settled yet, but I want to have this conversation with you because I believe so much in being present where your feet are. My feet are currently in a parking garage, having just got out of a taxi. So I am here in Las Vegas to meet with some of our strategic partners from Amazon Web Services at their reInvent conference this week. So very excited to be here in Las Vegas and also excited to be talking to you as always.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. And I love that you're present where you're at. That is how I experience you. So I think that's perfect. I think that's great. Okay, I got this question I'm starting to ask people, and I'd love for you to answer it. How did you learn to drive, or who did you learn to drive from?
So I grew up in small town West Texas, Sweetwater, Texas, and when I learned to drive, you took driver's ed through the school. So that doesn't really happen anymore. And so the gentleman that taught me how to drive, his name was Dennis Mosley, and Mr. Mosley. Not only did he teach me how to drive, but Tim, I remember our driving lessons would be to travel to his farm to feed his cattle. Like on Saturday mornings, we would drive out to feed Mr. Mosley's cattle, and
Wait,
come
you would
back
get out of the car and you would like grab hay bales and throw them in the trough, whatever. Awesome.
Yeah, I mean Norman needed food. He needed breakfast just like the rest of us.
Absolutely.
So I learned to drive from Mr. Mosley, and not only that, Tim, but right now I'm in the process of being a parent teacher for my oldest son, who's 15, and helping teach him how to drive. So I have a very unique perspective on what that looks like in this current time.
Okay, I was like a great parent. I feel like I aced parenting right up until it was time to teach my kids to drive. Yeah. I did not do it well. I did not do it. So my hat's off to you. Like that's a tough thing.
It's an exercise in patience of the highest order.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Because the stakes are real in parenting in a way that like they aren't in a lot of other things that you do. Like, hey, if your son doesn't say thank you for the gift or whatever, right? It's not like he's going to T-bone another car, right? Like
exactly.
Totally different stakes, right?
Yes. So, and it's funny as someone that teaches, now an adolescent or a teen how to drive, there's something about the way my posture and my demeanor as a teacher really matters in order for him to understand and not freak out when dad gives, subtle instruction on navigating the complexities of driving.
Yep. Oh man, that tracks 100%. Because you need to be able to say, look, I'm not criticizing you in a way that is against your character, but I am telling you you're being unsafe right now, right? And that for like you need to grow some thicker skin so that you can hear me and make these changes. I never got there. I never got there with my kids. My mom and dad, I basically outsourced it to my mom and dad who live next door. Yeah, because I just was like I couldn't get there. I was just really bad at it. So,
well, I'm impatient in so many ways, but I've been able to make this work so far. So
that's so impressive. That's so impressive. Yeah. So why do we learn to drive from humans is another question that I've been thinking about a lot lately.
Yeah. So it's definitely a handed down dimension, right? It's not something that simulators can help you get there, but there's the context of actually operating a vehicle that like it matters. The I'm playing right into your hand, man. I'm throwing like this is an alley-oop for you, but it's the human aspect and context of it that really matters when you're on the road.
It does, yeah. And I mean, you are playing into my hand in a way, but the reason I chose digital driver's ed is because it is such a great analogy on how there are some things you have to learn from other humans.
Yeah.
And it has to like that. And a sim doesn't work as well because it doesn't feel real because it's not real. And so it doesn't feel real. You know what I'm saying?
So
Yeah.
let me ask you this about like with digital driver's ed and that practice, what percent of it is the teacher like and their competency in teaching versus the student and their competency in being coachable and learning and applying? Like, talk me through your perspective on the balance of those things.
Something that I think is really interesting is that when a student steps up and begins to learn to drive, they don't feel like they can, right?
Yeah.
Like you as a teacher, and especially when you're teaching someone else to drive, you hold the outcome in the palm of your hand, right? You hold that outcome for them. You hold you believe in something they currently can't do, and you believe they'll be able to do it, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that becomes more and more clear to me all the time is that part of the reason that I think digital driver's ed works is because I know that I can teach them to do this. I know what the skills are. I know the time commitment. I know that if they do these things, they'll be successful. And it just all looks like one big massive dashboard to them, right?
Yeah.
But I know actually, like that one dial that's got the RPMs is not
Yeah.
nearly as important as the gas gauge, for example,
Sure.
right?
Right.
Or the speedometer, for example, right?
Yeah.
Like, but they look the same when you first start driving. It all looks the same, and so
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I bring is a level of we're going to focus your attention on two things: data quality and getting requests. Not everything, but we're going to focus on two things. You're going to do that over and over. That's going to be the 2 and 10 for you, right? Where it just like you're comfortable with it. And I think my confidence that others can do that, which is earned confidence because I've seen other students learn, I think that's a lot of where it comes from. Does
Well,
that make
it's
sense?
a testament. No, it totally does. It's a testament to being a good teacher and a good coach when you're passionate about teaching and coaching. And I know that with my wife, who's an educator, a principal, and it takes a certain type to be able to teach effectively. And it also requires something from a student to have the mindset of showing up ready to learn and willing to accept that context that you're giving them as a teacher. And so those things matter as to whether or not you're successful or not in, moving to that next level of being proficient in driving, as it were, in this analogy.
And you're highlighting something so critical, which is that we have to have a lot of empathy for how uncomfortable that is, right?
Yeah.
Like what it's like to sit there and feel like, oh, I'm supposed to be driving. I don't know how. Maybe in some cases, people were brought in to drive technology and they don't know how. They don't know exactly what that looks like. And so there has to also be a willingness on the part of the student to say, I need to learn something. And that discomfort needs to be part of the empathy, right? Like I need to be empathetic for the discomfort of not knowing something and opening yourself up to learning. And I feel like that's something I had to learn when I was putting digital driver's ed together that I didn't expect to learn. That was like not something I knew before I started doing it.
Tim, I'll tell you an unlock that I found in actually teaching Pierce how to drive is that not frequently but regularly as his instructor, I ask him things like, "Is that what you thought it was going to be?" Like let's just pause and assess. You on an on ramp onto a highway while someone is also moving towards an exit ramp. So you're trying to accelerate and merge while someone is trying to decelerate and exit. Is that what you thought it was going to be? How is it different? How is it the same? Like the context around those conversations and learning to drive, and I'm sure it's the same thing as the part of digital driver's ed, really matter, right? And it opens up that aspect of having fulsome discussion, which goes a long way.
Yeah, there is the expected to actual, which I love that you're raising that. I mean, with Pierce, like that's such a great question and so important. And then there's it's so interesting, all of these basics that you and I don't even think about.
Yeah.
For example, that that came from me teaching my daughter to drive. I had her stop on a gravel road, and then I was like, we're going to turn left. And so she turned the steering wheel, and we weren't going anywhere. We weren't turning, right? And I said, steering only works if you're moving. I'd never thought about steering only works when you're moving, but steering doesn't work if you're not moving. You can't steer without momentum, which is like this level of physics that I think is important. And and I immediately, because I was learning this at the same time, some of these same principles. One of the things that really struck me is that unless an organization is moving forward, there's like, you have to create momentum before you start putting in steering. And so a lot of times what I observe about the way people teach digital maturity is they give people a lot of steering information about where it's important to go, data governance, and these kinds of things. And I'm like, nope, that's too early. We need to just actually get this thing rolling, and then we can kind of move it in different places. But you have to start with some momentum. And the momentum is, I think, one of the keys to getting it all to work is how do you create momentum for an organization in this area? And once you do it, then you can steer it. But until you're moving, there's nowhere to go, right?
Yeah, that's totally powerful. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for playing right into my hand about digital driver's ed.
Yeah.
I would love to know. So that's what's on. I'm really starting to open up digital driver's ed. I'm looking at 2024 for organizations that are saying, hey, we've got a chaotic year end and we got a lot of stuff that came up for data quality, et cetera. What are we doing next? Digital driver's ed is a great option. Thanks for letting me talk about that.
Yeah.
What is up for you looking at the rest of this year and into 2024?
It's two things that come to mind. It is a busy time for our nonprofit marketing and fundraising friends. Tomorrow being Giving Tuesday and everything that comes with that, and then what that looks like in terms of getting to the next milestone of the giving season, the next milestone towards December 31st. And so I've started a series on LinkedIn called the Hey Justin Experience that allows me to reach out to friends, colleagues, people in the space to help navigate challenging issues. And so I've got a new episode dropping this week that's going to be all about managing stress. And while a year for nonprofit marketers, it is arguably the most stressful. And so I'm excited to be able to share with others what some of our friends like Mina Das or Cinch Park from Movember have to say about how they think of managing stress. And then, as you said, looking ahead into 2024, we've got an exciting year coming from ArcAD and the content that we put out, starting in January with our 2024 imperatives, which will be a list of targets, things to think about, things to focus on, and try to prioritize as a marketer and fundraiser so that you can be your best self going into this next year. So be on the lookout for both of those things. You can connect with me on LinkedIn and check out the Hey Justin Experience that way. Love it.
I'm just looking at your profile now. I can't wait to see that coming on. It's going to be really cool. So I think that's great. And I'm really glad that you're raising the Giving Tuesday coming up tomorrow, how busy this is for our marketing friends in nonprofits, our fundraising friends in nonprofits. Yeah. Hang in there, guys. Like this is the hard part of this marathon. Keep going.
This is, yeah. Let this be some sort of like virtual water that we're handing you as you're running this race of, that you're hitting that grind somewhere on the race. And so, we just want to, encourage them as they get through tomorrow and be able to celebrate everything that's going to happen tomorrow, because it's always incredible and edifying. And so, exciting time, challenging time, but exciting.
Love it. Justin, thanks so much for your time. Good luck at the conference that you're just headed into literally right now. I hope you have a great time in Vegas, and I will catch you, I'm sure, later this year and for sure in 2024.
Right on, Tim. Great to see you, friend.